You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. My name is Arya Whitner. No, it's not Wednesday. It's Saturday. And it's time for your NXT Takeover Orlando post-show recap audio report here on AngryMarks.com. Thank you for listening. We're going to start with the big news of the night. And that's that it took me 12 hours to watch the Hall of Fame last night. Seriously, I watched part of it while I was at work Friday night. I came home, went to sleep, watched some this morning, and then finished it up literally at 8 a.m., so it took me 12 full hours. Wait, what do you mean that's not the big news? Well, the big news, the other big news, is that former WWE Intercontinental Champion and TNA World Heavyweight Champion Drew McIntyre / Drew Galloway has re-signed with WWE. According to what I'm reading here, he was supposed to be at the WWN Super Show tonight here on WrestleMania weekend, but he got laid out by Keith Lee early in the show. Then I guess jumped in a cab, raced across town, put on a nice suit, and showed up in time to watch the main event. So Galloway, according to ESPN.com, has re-signed and is going to be on NXT. So probably means somebody on this show, on this takeover, may not be in NXT much longer. Don't know who that would be. But let's go through the show. And then after we go through the show, I'm going to tell you my convoluted, crazy, but somehow sensible WrestleMania main event prediction. And we'll see if I'm the craziest MFer ever or if I'm the expert prognosticator that I pretend to be. But let's get on to NXT TakeOver, shall we? And we start the show with big news. Well, not really. But we start the show with medium-sized news. No Way Jose was supposed to wrestle at Access earlier today. However, he was attacked and brutally beaten down by Sanity. I have no idea where the rest of his team was. However, they weren't at Access, and so they were not able to help their boy, No Way Jose, in this brutal 4-on-1 beatdown. And so during the pre-show, we were told that Jose would not be part of the 8-person tag team match, and that Ty Dillinger, Roderick Strong, and Ruby Riott either could find a new partner or had to do a 4-on-3 handicap match. The show started with the voice of God, and by God, I mean Triple H. He was not physically standing inside the arena. However, the lights were all dark. Only the ring was lit up. However, the voice told us that, or the voice welcomed us to NXT TakeOver, saying that we have come home. They had a video package to start the show, which was more about how NXT evolved. And it's funny because when you watch a show every single week, you don't always realize all the changes as they're happening. But go back and rewatch the early developmental NXT shows, which just got put up on the network. And man, oh man, Maddie, those look different. In addition to the fact that nobody really cared, the shows themselves were completely different back then, a whopping 5 years ago. But let's kick things off here with the opener. It only is going to take me 5 minutes to get into the first match, I guess. 8-person tag team match, Sanity versus Ty Dillinger, Roderick Strong, Ruby Riott, and their mystery partner that they had about half an hour to find, Cassius Ohno. So, I heard rumors that Cassius Ohno found better gear. Well, he traded in his Dream Team jersey for a jersey that looked like the Sacramento Kings old jersey, purple and black. It looked better in the sense that I guess white was not Ono's color. So we'll see if it does look better in the long run. At least on the first night, it was a step up. But I was hoping he would put on a singlet of some sort. That appears to not be happening, at least yet anyway. The fans were really into this match. In fact, the fans were really into the entire show. But this match, of course, was built around the ongoing feud between Dillinger and Eric Young. Ruby broke out a cool move early when Nikki Cross caught her in the corner on an up and under. But Ruby, using just her knees, drove Nikki Cross face first into the turnbuckle. The two of them tagged out and never officially tagged back in, but they would be all over the match at different points, including basically, I don't think Nikki Cross ever really got any offense in on Ruby Riott, and Ruby just kind of threw her around the ring. And at the end of the day, Ruby, at the finish of the match, did a running drop kick off the apron to Nikki Cross. So, getting them out of the way, it's on to the men. Sanity got the heat on Roderick Strong. Killian Dane inspired a shave your back chant, so he replied with a running drop kick to Strong. Before that, Strong was going crazy, hitting backbreakers on everyone. Dillinger eventually got the hot tag and pretty much beat up all three male members of Sanity by himself. Things got out of control, including a giant dive sequence, which ended with Killian Dane ramming Ono into the ring apron. Dillinger had Dane pinned before the finish, but Alexander Wolf broke it up. Ono gave Wolf the rolling elbow, but Young laid Ono out with a neck breaker and then Strong gave Young the sick kick. And then the finish just saw Killian Dane pick up Ty Dillinger and pin him with the one-winged angel, which was called the Ulster Plantation, according to Wikipedia. Again, Nigel McGuinness sometimes is hard to understand, and when he's yelling into the mic and the crowd is really loud, you can't always tell what the hell he's saying. But thanks to the always reliable people at Wikipedia for letting me know that Dane calls that the Ulster Plantation. Edge and Beth Phoenix were shown sitting ringside. And then we got our next match, the debuting Aleister Black, complete with a raised platform for his entrance, versus Andrade Cien Almas. I don't know how often these two ever wrestled before. Maybe they've never wrestled before. Maybe they've wrestled 3,117 times before. However, they wrestled like they knew each other. They did not connect on a lot of moves in the first few minutes, as both men knew exactly what the other was going to do, and before they did it, the other one would have moved out of the way and avoid contact. Almost did his cocky lay down on the ropes thing, and then Black got him outside the ring and went for a dive. Almost moved out of the way. However, Black, in just one fluid motion, flipped backwards off of the ropes to avoid crashing outside of the ring. Black hit a version of the Kota Ibushi moonsault outside the ring. However, instead of jumping over the ropes onto the middle turnbuckle, he jumped over the top ropes onto the apron, then to the middle turnbuckle. But hey, it still looked cool nonetheless. Almost worked on Black's arms, including using a Fujiwara armbar. And Black had to somehow fight to the ropes despite not having use of either of his arms. Almost got a number of really close near falls where Black kicked out at the last possible second. Black used a lot of knees and kicks throughout the match and actually used his foot to lift Almas up off of the ground for the finish, which was a spin kick to the head, which Black calls the Black Mass. Nigel McGuinness made a boo-boo as he shouted that the future is bright for Ring of Honor. Whether or not that's true, we don't know at the moment. However, we had an awkward pause, and Nigel just continued like nothing happened. He did a little bit of a boo-boo there. Tag Team Championship on the line next. Authors of Pain, The Revival, DIY, a three-way elimination match. The announcers finally mentioned what I was talking about last Wednesday, where the Authors of Pain did not, the elimination rules helped the Authors of Pain because no one could win their titles without beating them for a change. And this was a very weird match. Oh, I should point out, they replaced all three championships. The actual championship belts. The tag team title belts look like a cross between the old version and the UK title. And I know it's going to sound like a horrible, just a horrible description. But if you saw it, you know what I'm talking about. And then the women's title and the world title, or the NXT world title, are very similar in look, except the women's title has NXT in silver letters, and from what I saw, the men's title has it in just gold letters. But we'll get to all that later. William Regal, before each title match, was in the ring. They collected the old belts, and he presented the referee with the new belts to raise up before the match began. The story of this match was the Authors of Pain are baby faces, and DIY and the Revival, I can't say they're morons, but one of them would have won the match if they would have stopped fighting each other. Because during the first fall, the first fall, I think the whole match went 15 minutes, and the first fall went 13 of them, maybe a little longer. But basically, the first fall was the entire match, and they did a fairly quick second fall. The Revival and DIY kept trying to work together, and every time they did work together, the fans would explode. Well, I know a lot of people had this as the best match of the night. This was an excellent match. In my opinion, second best match of the night, which is still pretty darn good. But the Revival and DIY would team up, beat down the Authors of Pain, and then instead of trying to pin them, they would turn on each other. And that would end up being their downfall. Spoiler alert. They set up a table outside the ring early, and then they broke down from a six-way brawl into a tag team match playa. It was supposed to be a normal tag team match with everyone getting tags and all this crap, except, it kept breaking down to a six-way brawl. The camera person, I just want to say this out of the way. WWE production is wonderful. It's great. It spoiled me from watching a lot of indie shows with horrible shaky cameras and whatnot. However, they hired the TNA production staff for this match because they were missing a lot of spots. And you're going to get that when you have six guys brawling all over the place. But, they were missing shots and then cutting to other shots that they were missing as well. So this one, like I said, DIY and the Revival would work together, then break up. Work together, then break up. And ultimately, the whole world could see that if they worked together, they could have knocked out the Authors of Pain, which, by the way, the Authors of Pain are the heels, and there were ridiculous at times where one of them would single-handedly be beating up all four of the other men by themselves. Because they finally put one of AOP through a table. I've gone off on a tangent, so I don't even know where I am in my notes. But they put one of AOP through a table, and so the other four went off to the other one, and the other AOP member, by himself, destroyed the other four. By the way, it was Rezar who got thrown through the table, and Akam that beat the crap out of all four of them by himself. By the way, I should point out that when they went to put Rezar through the table, the referee was waving his arms as if they did this, it would be a disqualification, which was only when the DIY was going to do it themselves. And then the Revival put him entirely because he needed help. And the Revival helped put him through. There was no disqualification, so therefore he looked like a moron sitting there waving his arms to and fro. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, I guess. We did get some great mishmash spots here. At one point, when they did manage to get Akam down, when the four of them together got Akam down in the ring, we got a whole bunch of crossed-up spots, including Dawson putting on the reverse figure four while Gargano put him in a crossface. At this point, by the way, Akam nearly tapped out. However, Razor appeared from the rubble, picked up Ciampa and Wilder, and drove them into the pile of people, breaking up the submission. Once again, we crossed up the finishers as we got to the end of the first fall, as Gargano and Dawson used DIY's running kick/knee finish on Razor. Ciampa and Wilder hit the Shatter Machine on Akam. However, they didn't try to pin either of them. And instead, Authors of Pain rolled outside. We got a giant dive sequence, finishing with Dawson giving Gargano a superplex onto the pile outside of the ring. I want to point out earlier they did try to do another dive sequence. However, the Authors of Pain caught Johnny Gargano, and when Ciampa went for a suicide dive, they threw Johnny Gargano into the diving Tommaso Ciampa, which just looked amazing. And then after all that, Akam and Razor got back in and pinned Ciampa with the last chapter, which caused the fans to erupt in very loud booing and chants of bullshit. The fans, to begin the second fall, began chanting, "Delete, delete, delete," possibly not aware that the Hardys were wrestling on another show tonight. Revival, they teased a lot of pins. It's like, you heard the story about how in OVW, they tell the new guys to basically go in and do 10 different types of near falls, or 10 different ways of trying to pin somebody. I think the Revival just took that class because they went in and did every possible, I don't say screw job near fall, but every near fall you've been taught to believe is going to be the pin, and they did that here. And the Authors of Pain, the biggest baby faces in the match, kept kicking out. They teased the Diesel Bret Hart Survivor Series finish, where Akam went to give Scott Dawson a power bomb. Dawson collapsed, and then, and by the way, the camera missed this part. When Akam went to pick up Dawson, Dawson small packaged him. However, Akam kicked out. They went right to the finish and hit the Super Collider, and the Authors of Pain beat both teams by themselves, which included many minutes of a 4-on-2 handicap match. The fans, by the way, despite the fact that they made the Authors of Pain into the biggest baby faces of the match, did not approve. Excellent match, but, you know, the fans obviously want to see Revival or DIY win. You never know. Maybe those four men will be on Raw or SmackDown soon. Who knows, right? NXT Women's Championship on the line. The undefeated, undisputed, reigning, defending NXT Women's Champion Asuka versus the undefeated, undisputed number one contender, Ember Moon. This was pretty much everything you were expecting, with a finish that I don't think anyone was expecting the finish, to be perfectly honest. You know, maybe if we were really thinking about it, sure. In case anyone's curious, because you may have heard them talk about how Asuka is now the longest reigning champion in NXT. And if you're a geek like me, you are aware that going into this match, Asuka was champion for 364 days. And way back when, the Ascension were the tag team champions for 364 real-life days. And for the longest time, they'd always talk about the Ascension's 364-day title reign. However, at some point, I don't know when, but at some point fairly recently, I guess, they decided to consider Ascension's reign beginning when they showed the match of them winning, which was like 2 weeks later. So Ascension's year-long title reign has retroactively been shortened by like 2 weeks. So Asuka's 364-day title reign is now considered the longest title reign, even though the Ascension held the belt for 364 consecutive days. A lot of dueling chants of "Let's go Asuka" / Ember Moon. Ember was portrayed as a true equal of Asuka in this one and had the early advantage until Ember actually teased Asuka, which brought out the angry version of the champion. Asuka took over with a running hip attack while Ember was on the apron, causing Moon to fly and crash onto the guardrails. Ember came back and hit Christian's springboard dive over the top rope to the floor. Asuka went for the Asuka lock 3 times early on and actually got it on. And the fans, I don't think were really into it because the match was still the first 5, 6, 7 minutes. So I don't think anyone thought it was really going to be the finish, even though the match, at the end of the day, I think the match really went 12 or 13 minutes. So this really was starting towards the finish, but no one really believed it yet. By the way, when she got it on, Ember made it to the ropes and broke it. Ember went for the Eclipse the first time, but Asuka used that to take over and knock her off the ropes. Ember hit a series of hard-hitting moves which woke Asuka up because Asuka's continuing the gimmick of her just being too cocky, and one day someone's going to beat her, and, can only imagine what's going to happen from there. The fans were really into this match, and I think a lot of people were surprised, like I said, by the finish, because at the finish, Ember Moon goes to the top rope for the Eclipse. This is it. All she has to do is hit it. Asuka is beaten. Asuka's down. Asuka is fighting to her feet. She's getting the beating of her life. And Asuka shoves the referee into the ropes. Ember crotches herself on the top rope. And when she falls to the mat, Asuka uses the spin kick to the head and pins her. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, Asuka is still your reigning, defending, undisputed, undefeated NXT Women's Wrestling Champion. As I mentioned earlier, former WWE Intercontinental Champion, former TNA World Heavyweight Champion. I think he was the first TNA Grand Champion. Actually, no, he wasn't. He was supposed to be in the match, but he got injured beforehand, so he couldn't be in it. Drew McIntyre / Drew Galloway, also former guest on my Wrestling Outsiders podcast, was shown sitting ringside to enjoy the spectacle of the main event. Bobby Roode versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the NXT Championship. Nakamura got a huge light and smoke show, while Roode had pianists play his theme a cappella at first. In case you're curious, you may have had your ears perk up when I said pianists. Rebby Hardy was not one of the pianists. I know that I had a Facebook message by someone who said that when they turn on TakeOver, they see a pianist and thought that was Rebby at first, but it wasn't. I want to point out that Roode's entrance today lasted a impressive 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Roode wanted to go after Nakamura's knee from the start. However, we found out that the knee was 100%, at least the beginning of it, as he used that and the rest of his leg to kick Roode all over the champ's body. The match slowed down as Roode took over. The fans did the ruling chants in this match as well, as Roode slowed it down and clasped on nerve holds and shin locks. Shockingly, Nakamura's offense was more exciting than that, which did inspire Roode to up the excitement factor at one point, hitting a discus lariat to cut off the two-time former champ. This match probably went close to half an hour, and 15 minutes into it, Roode was finally able to chop block Nakamura and work on that previously injured knee. Roode used the figure four twice. Nakamura turned the second attempt into a cross arm breaker. Roode fought out of it, but Nakamura got it on tighter the second time, but Roode was able to get to the ropes. They teased the disqualification twice, the first with Nakamura not listening to the referee, but nothing came of that. I'll tell you about the second one as we get to the finish. Roode was draped across the top rope for Nakamura's running corner knee, but the champ moved, so Nakamura slammed his knee into the turnbuckle. Roode at one point used a backstabber and went for the glorious DDT, but instead got a knee right to the face and then a running knee to the side of the face. Nakamura went for the Kinshasa the first time, but Roode rolled out of the ring. Nakamura tossed him back in, but Roode kicked the ropes when Nakamura came through them, hit the glorious DDT for the one, the two, and the oh my god Nakamura kicked out. Now at this point, Bobby Roode, the man who's trying to improve NXT for me, you, and every one of the fans watching, decided it was very important to check out the ring bell. I wanted to make sure that this ring bell was working to the best of its abilities. And so Roode picked up the ring bell, and he decided he needed to take it for a walk, so he took it into the ring. However, the evil referee decided, you can't bring that bell into the ring. Roode dared the referee to disqualify him, which he didn't. So Nakamura used a kick to the head. Nakamura went for the Kinshasa. Roode somehow turned that into the Arn Anderson Spinebuster, which brought the entire crowd to its feet. The fans exploded, and then Nakamura starts building up more momentum. He's building up for the Kinshasa for a third time. However, Roode delivers a chop block. Roode then hits a tornado glorious DDT for the win. So yes, Bobby Roode is still the NXT champion, an excellent takeover, and setting the stage for an interesting WrestleMania. Now, speaking of WrestleMania, I promised about 28 minutes ago that I would tell you my wacky, crazy prediction for the main event matches. Now, of course, I'm the person who predicted John Laurinaitis to win a Royal Rumble that he was never in, Daniel Bryan to win a Royal Rumble that he was never in, and Finn Balor to win a Royal Rumble that he was never in. So with that in mind, perhaps you should take my predictions with a grain of salt. However, if you enjoyed the insanity of me coming up with logical reasons for why John Laurinaitis would win the Royal Rumble, you might enjoy a good logical reason as to why what's going to happen, well, what I'm predicting is going to happen, is going to happen. So first of all, and I come to these conclusions based on the fact that WWE, even if it makes total sense, much like my brother, does not like to go with the predictable finish all the time. And so first of all, Chris Jericho beats Kevin Owens. And I know there's people sitting here scratching their heads going, what am I smoking? Jericho's leaving in a month. Exactly. Jericho's leaving in a month. There are like 40 guys on Raw. He could drop the U.S. title to any one of them. And I'm sure they could pick somebody. Let's just say it's Mo. Yeah, Mo did it. So, Jericho beats Owens. Then the Universal title match happens with Goldberg and Brock Lesnar. Now you can do this one of two ways. You can have another short 3-minute sprint, and you can have the epic, drawn out 15, 20-minute match. But at the end of the day, Goldberg wins. Yes, I'm really on some good drugs today, folks. Goldberg wins. And somehow, Brock Lesnar, whether it's in the course of the match or after the match when he loses, flips the fuck out and beats the holy living hell out of Goldberg. Just beats him within an inch of his life, folks. Think of the worst beatings you've seen. Like, hopefully he doesn't give him the Randy Orton hard way elbow to the head, but like in a similar vein, think that way. Just a total butt kicking. And then after Goldberg is laid, broken, beaten, and battered on the mat, out comes Kevin Owens. And why does Kevin Owens come out now? Let's rewind about a month ago after Fastlane when Kevin Owens said that Stephanie McMahon told him that he could have his one-on-one rematch for the Universal title any time he wanted it. And what better time and place to have it than after Goldberg is laid out and left bloody, beaten, and battered at the end of a long match or a short, quick sprint that he then gets his butt kicked afterwards from. And Kevin Owens saunters to the ring, beats Goldberg, and wins the Universal title. And we're off to the races for another year. Now, of course, I could be and probably will be wrong. But in case this crazy set of circumstances occurs, just remember, you heard it from me first. But that's going to do it from here. Thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you again. Actually, I'll be back tomorrow night to prove that my prediction is correct with the live play-by-play of the full 7-hour WrestleMania event. Hopefully I don't fall asleep in the middle of it. And after that, I'll be back Wednesday with NXT, at which point I'll be sick of wrestling. But thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you again later.
And remember, you can follow Arya on Twitter at TheReallyRealAW. Subscribe to AngryMarks.com on YouTube for more NXT audio reports.
You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.